Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to give it a couple more minutes and get started here right at 2, and I'll give it away to Clara. Clara, I think you're muted if you were
Oh
trying to say
gosh,
something.
I am muted. That continues to be the famous sentence of all decades. You are muted. I was just acknowledging that it's good to be here with some of familiar faces. And Amy, I was giving kudos to you for your bravery in terms of managing the technology. It's not easy. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being there and supporting us in that way.
Absolutely. My computer is a little slow today, though, so bear with me, but everything should work as we hope it should.
Well, that's what we can do, right? Hope for the best and try our very best. And there's 1 more minute left. That was my mindful bell going off. Amy, should we get started?
Let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot to go through today, so might as well
Okay,
jump on in.
Wonderful. Good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is such a gift to be with you all today. And I hope that everybody is able to see the slides. And right now we see kind of our opening slide. And it looks to me, the reason why I chose that slide is because it looks to me like that person is living on purpose. You know, these visual represents to me what it means to, you know, be present in a very specific moment. So no matter how mundane or how simple it might look, we can choose to live every moment, every activity, every relationship with more purpose. And purpose has been kind of at the core of what we have been talking about and sharing since the day that we met together in person last year. And this image, it's an invitation to living with more purpose, being more mindful, being conscious in the here and now. No sound. Someone says there's no sound, Amy. um so just to be clear, there's no sound on the slide at all. It should be just my voice right now.
I am able to hear you.
Okay. Can we hear some other folks? If you can chat, if you can hear me, okay, or thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, I see a few thumbs up. So Christina, it might be something on your end that you need to maybe increase the volume. I will increase my volume as well. Perfectly fine, Marcia says. Okay, so thumbs up. Amy, I'll let you kind of work with Christina if it's possible, okay?
Yep.
So these means, being more present, more mindful, more conscious in the here and now, regardless of the activity that we're doing. And I think in the end, really, purpose can filled us in with more aliveness and engagement and intention, so that we can save your life, so that we can eat life, so that we can flourish and thrive. And I would like to invite a couple of people to either chat or to, raise their hands to share something about the assignment that we had last time. So in the first webinar, there was an invitation to continue to work with the photo of your child, the photo of you as a little girl or as a little boy. There was another invitation to track emotions, to track your yearning, and some of the actions that you were kind of intended to do with the mindfulness bell every hour. And at the end, it was an invitation for you to journal or to write down, the things that are coming up to you, how you're learning, and how you're growing. So do we have anyone that wants to share? For those who are a little bit more shy, just share in the chat as well. If there was one thing that came to mind, one thing that you got away with that you would like to share. So I'm trying to see in the gallery view if there's any people that are brave that would like to share. Do I see any hands up? I see some smiling faces. There's some kind of like uh little scary faces. I realize that I snack more when I'm stressed. Nice, Marcia. Thank you for being honest today. There's no judgment or shame in sharing. This is all human beings and human behaviors. Anyone else that would like to share anything that came up after the assignments? Oh, I have a hands up. Patty. Patty is raising her hand.
Hello. Hello. Yes, practicing the bell. I couldn't do it every hour, but I set it up for every 3 hours to do the bell. And it was just 1 minute of mindfulness, so just sitting with my breath. And it was just a better day. I noticed that I was more patient with myself. I noticed that I started doing things that I had put behind. I needed to really get rid of one corner of my room, had a little pile, and it was great to have the motivation to declutter, not because I had to, but I was enthusiastic. So I'm like, I mean, yes. So those are
That
little
is
changes
wonderful.
that happened, that just
That
sort of
is
like, even
wonderful,
that was
Patty.
very simple, but it brought a lot of to go for something that, okay, it's my bedroom. I want to make my bed. That corner of my bedroom was bothering me for a long time. When you have that pile. So just, I'm like, okay, just befriending myself. And I had practiced a little bit of that, but here is a little the frequency. I think it's important how much we have to do throughout the day. And the 1 hour I couldn't do, but I made it about every 3 hours, and that worked really well.
That's
So I think
wonderful.
I'm going to continue.
That's wonderful, Patty. I congratulate you for one, taking the risk and doing the assignment, and two, customizing it to the needs that you are having. So keep on going, keep doing the mindfulness bell, and way to go. So clapping to you, and sending you, continued development on that standpoint. So um, I know there's a couple of more people that were sharing. So good to you. Keep using the chat for all of that. Sharing as a group. Remember that when someone shares, most likely that is going to be something that will also resonate to someone else. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings in here. So we're gonna keep on going. Most of you already know me from our past experiences together, all related to purpose and to awaken purpose in our lives, in our relationships, and at work. For those of you who haven't seen me before, my name is Clara Lucia Carrier, and my purpose is to facilitate growth, success, and fulfillment by evoking people's purpose, positive mindset, and possibilities. And today, we're actually going to be doing that. But before, I'm going to invite you to take a risk and to do something that could be a little out of the ordinary, but I promise you there's a reason for it. So before we get into today's webinar, we're going to dance away, living on purpose in the moment. So make sure that you're safe to do this. Make sure that you're safe to do this, but for just 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you to trust me, and we're going to start dancing away to a very happy and upbeat song. So I'm going to have Amy click the start button, and we're going to start dancing.
Clap
30
along
seconds.
if you feel like a room without a roof.
Got it.
Clap along if you feel like happiness is
Follow
the
the
truth.
sound.
Clap along
Make it a
if
bit.
you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high to bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, bring me down, can't none bring me down. Your love is too high to bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap.
Wonderful. So for those of you who are still a little skeptical, I'm going to share with you why dancing is so important. Movement is very important. Research actually shows that when we activate our bodies through movement and breathing, we're actually opening up our minds to learning and to being more present and engaged in the moment. There's actually 2 studies that say that dancing actually may keep you healthier into old age, and potentially actually by reducing the risk of disabilities and dementia. So we just did something super helpful to prepare our hearts and our minds to learn and to grow. So I appreciate you in advance for trusting me and for trusting this little thing that we did about dancing with purpose. So as I catch my breath, and I will let you catch your breath too, we're going to just go quickly into why we're here today. So we have been participating in a series of webinars. Today is the second of 3. And the ultimate goal of all of these webinars is to awaken purpose, to get to know us a little bit better, others around us, and also the environment that we are around. So today we're going to be here for about 60 minutes. And today we're going to talk about relationships and how to create purposeful and robust relationships. There's studies that actually show that people who are more socially connected to family, to friends, to colleagues, and to their community are happier, physically healthier, they live longer, they have fewer mental health problems than people who actually are less well connected. So this is really not just about the number of friends that you have. It is about how committed you are into those relationships. It's equally the nuance of close relationships, including those at work, but also the quality of those relationships. And those relationships, which of those matter the most? So doing a quick audit of your relationships at large, think about how do you grade their quality. Just be a little bit, reflective right now. So from all those relationships that you have, how do you grade their quality? So this experience today, we'll learn a little bit about what makes a good relationship from a toxic relationship. And we're also going to be uncovering how to take better responsibility for ourselves in the way that we show up in those relationships. So I'm going to have Amy post the poll because I would like to learn a little bit about kind of what is your expectation for today. And the poll simply asks you the question, what do you want or what do you intend to get out of today's time together? So take a few seconds to mark all that apply to you. And as the answers are coming in, I see that there's quite movement into have deeper, more fun and purposeful relationships, followed by finding the secret to more honest and satisfying relationships. So relationships do matter. Relationships are super important. And I think we all know that in theory, but sometimes we just get caught up in the drama of relationships. So in the next slide, what I'm going to invite you to do, and Amy is going to do as a favor, to break us up in groups. And I want you to spend just 1 minute with your group brainstorming and thinking everything about what a bad relationship is. Anything that you can think of a bad relationship, either at work or a bad love relationship. Anything that comes to mind. What are some of the characteristics about these bad relationships? What defines them? What are some of the elements of a bad relationship? So I'm going to ask Amy to take us away into groups and see what you guys come up with. Okay, bad relationships.
Oh,
There we go.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
What happened?
I think that was Speedy Gonzalez dating.
Yes. Yes.
We had to
Okay.
get out of there.
Amy, was that intentional? Was that a little oops?
I'm sorry, Clara. Could you repeat that?
No, that was super quick.
Quick enough, or should we go back again?
So how about so this one was about kind of bad relationships, toxic relationships. Let's give a little bit more time to the next one, which is what makes a good relationship in your opinion, in your experience. We can go back to the same groups and share about what makes it a good relationship. So we're going to go now into our groups.
Yes, we are. As soon as my computer decides it knows what it's doing. Okay, here we go. Round two.
Oh,
I don't know. I keep going away.
Okay.
Oh,
So I know that people are coming back right now, and you can mute your lovely, but please share in the chat some of the things that came up in your group. Some of the things that came up about toxic relationships or good relationships. So just chat. What came up to you about toxic relationships and about good relationships? Just share a few thoughts in the chat. Communication and respect, part of the good relationship. Nice. Thank you, Leslie. Marcia, communication affects both trust, honesty, communication, wanting the best for each other, equality, trust and communication. Trust, a big one. Communication, listening, intentionality, toxic, letting bad behaviors enable good, mutual understanding for good, poor communication. Got it. So you guys kind of like get point. You guys kind of like understand where we're headed. Right now, what I'm going to do is present to you some of the findings that have been coming up from two people that I had the pleasure of knowing and being mentored by. They're Dr. Bob and Dr. Judith Reith, and they have gathered a lot of research in terms of, you know, what makes a toxic and what makes a good relationship in their book, The Heart of the Fight, which is actually one of the resources towards the end. And again, this represents hundreds of studies that they did. So some of the aspects that they found out are going to be shared here. And they call these the relationship engagement continuum. So there's some elements about what they found, and it's also there's some things that I have modified for today's purpose. So if you see, there's kind of like two sides of your screen right now. One side is the left side, and in that side, there's kind of the stormy part, the stuff that we do that it's not great. This is the stuff that comes in research that shows that leads to bad relationships, to breakups, to divorces, to ruptures in relationships, to actually people leaving the work environment. You know, this is the stuff that, by the way, we all do it as human beings. But it's the stuff that we must be aware of because it is the most damaging to ourselves and the most damaging to our relationships. So you can see there's a couple of categories on that left side, and these are behaviors like passive, destructive, misengaged, destructive behaviors. This is the stuff that makes relationships toxic. And these are some of the things that you mentioned in your groups. So that's kind of giving you a sense of what happens in the left side of that engagement continuum. On the other hand, on the right side, it's where we have the good relationships. This size is what research shows that leads to satisfying, to more satisfaction, more intimacy. It shows that there's relationships with more nurturing in them, with more of a positive, fulfilling, and growing experience. So these categories, these behaviors are obviously more conscious, more constructive and creative, and they actually lead to more intimacy and more deep engagement. And the last part of this graphic is kind of the middle, the center. If you see, it's a dividing line between the left and the right. In the middle, it's, you know, the three things that need to be connected so that we can move from one place to the other. And that's our consciousness, that's our yearning. And we've seen yearning before come up, but the yearning is our yearning to matter, to be heard, to be seen, to love and to be loved. And then at the end, our emotions. So our emotions, our yearning, and our consciousness, when we are tuned to those, is what allows us to move from the left to the right. So we're going to start with the barriers to creating purposeful relationships. And the next slides, by the way, are meant to go very fast. They're deliberately there to actually show you some images that you can use to see how you can reflect to those or how you can see yourself in those. These images are not meant to shame you or to embarrass you or to judge you. These images are there to project a picture and to invite you to reflect. These are actually behaviors that we all do. And I want to show hands of who here is a human being. I want to see who here is a human being. Great. Okay, I'm not that alone then. Wonderful. So we all are human beings and we all fall into these behaviors. The invitation is for all of us to become more aware of when we are in these behaviors. So we're going to go very quickly, as I say. So let's take a look at this couple. You may come up with kind of like a definition of what they're experiencing, but they're kind of disengaged. Not yet, Amy. Give me a second. So this couple in the red sofa, they're disengaged, right? In this other slide, you see them kind of like in a beautiful setting, but they're totally zoned out. They're not available to each other. Look at that. I mean, it's understandable that these are human behaviors because, we all do them, but, we want to be mindful of that. This next one with the couple and the coffee, they're disengaged. They're actually avoiding each other. And, when you see that, what do you feel? Sometimes, we avoid people to avoid pain, or we avoid, a relationship or a conversation to avoid kind of like sharing ourselves so that we are not vulnerable. And sometimes it's actually to punish the other person. How about this one? What about hiding out? Being kind of afraid of getting close, not letting someone actually know us deeply inside. And it's understandable. We all do it, but still this is not great for relationships, personally or professionally. How about this next one at work? Kind of getting bored, really not engaged, right? Not engaging. Boredom is actually one of the things that research shows that in relationships really leads to a lot of unhappiness and distance. That is why, one of the things that we really want to pay attention is symptoms of being bored, at home or at work. Or what about here in this next one? Withdrawing completely or stonewalling, just not wanting to engage, almost kind of avoiding each other. There's another one coming up, this figure that is kind of like talking to the hand, refusing to engage. And this actually is something that in research shows up that, male stonewalling is very upsetting for women, meaning when men kind of like put up kind of like these facade and um, they're trying to kind of like avoid getting into the emotional side, being vulnerable. And then for women, that's very frustrating because what they're trying to do is we're trying to get the reaction and really dive deeper. But this really makes, men very uncomfortable sometimes. And men kind of like turn to shut down. And then, for us women, that makes us, even more upsetting. So this is just to show you that we human beings react to things differently. And sometimes by pushing one behavior or another, we're actually distancing ourselves more with each other. So raise your hand if you have experienced this before. If you're experiencing kind of like, being kind of like stop on your tracks, then, the person is completely avoiding, communicating with you. I see some hands up. Perfect. This is also kind of another way to relate the stonewalling kind of treatment is silent treatment, being quiet, being kind of like down, or also being quiet, but kind of like having a sense of superiority. It's kind of that icy treatment that we could give to someone else. How about these other one? This one is a more kind of like passive aggressive treatment, is when we get angry and we may not actually do what these two people are doing to each other, but in reality, that's how we're feeling inside of us. This rage is what's happening inside of us. Or when we're keeping secrets or not being truthful, like in the next one. We're not being honest. We're kind of like hiding things. We actually not revealing ourselves for what's really going on with us. All of these are examples of being misengaged or having destructive patterns or disengagement. What about avoiding? When we are just running away from conflict. There are couples that actually say that they never fight, Well, I'll tell you that research says that is too bad. That means that they are not invested in that relationship enough to really go for what they want and what they really yearn for. So not fighting, it's not necessarily a good sign, which is something to be aware of, because there is less of you in that relationship. Another thing is that we're often, too careful, right? So careful to, making nice. So we're kind of like walking on eggshells all the time. And that's very damaging for relationships because we're not engaging enough to make it real, to work things out, to go in, to be satisfied. And the notion, have you heard of, not rocking the boat? Like, don't make any problems. This is just the stuff that does not make it for good relationships. And again, it's not to shame us, it's not to feel bad about us, but it's to get conscious about it. It's to be aware of those behaviors. And at the end of the day, like in the next slide, it's really those behaviors that rather than going for what we want, we're actually making, the other person wrong, or we're telling or we're accusing them of being a bad person, kind of like that kind of thing. So the things that I'm telling you right now have been proven over and over to be super damaging for relationships at home and at work. And none of us are above it. So let me summarize it for you. The first really, really bad damaging behavior is to be criticizing rather than going for what you really want. The second one in this slide is kind of having contempt, like, saying, oh, please, or how many of you have rolled your eyes and kind of dismissed the other person, or having a tone or kind of like being sarcastic. We're just really showing you a sense of, these things so that you are aware of it. Or how about these next one? Defending ourselves. Did what? Me? And this is I want you to take this with a little bit of a lighter kind of approach, but it's really damaging when we are defending ourselves and justifying ourselves all the time. It's kind of like going into first grade arguments, complaining and pushing away the information and acting out or denying that it was actually us. Defensiveness is really a bad one. How about these other way of dealing with conflict or dealing with relationships? Using text for the wrong reasons in relationships. Like this one's, are you there? What's going on? Are we breaking up? Are you kidding me? By text. So you don't use cell phones. You don't use cell phones for a lot of things that really matter in relationships. You actually do face-to-face interactions. So there's studies on these people who are in relationships and couples who use texting to apologize or to make amends for the wrong behavior. When they're using text, it's a no-no. Text should be used for logistics, for communication, kind of like simple things to go about, but never to deal and to confront real stuff, real stuff, important things. And I think that takes us into, these kind of zone when we blame, when we, complain, when we fault, or when we actually justify it. So when we blame another person, or when we shame them, or when we justify our behavior, we're actually avoiding responsibility. The research shows that when we do these, it's pretty damaging to relationships. The relationships, they don't move forward when we're kind of in these dynamic. When we blame, when we shame, or when we justify, we are stuck. We are stuck. There's a very interesting study from the engineer William Deming. He was a quality control expert. Maybe you've heard about it, but he actually found out specifically in the manufacturing industry that when there's a problem, when employees kind of notice that there's something wrong, and someone calls their attention, their immediate reaction is what? It's to blame other people or other departments or someone else. So they feel so ashamed, or they justify it so much that they just, do this, point fingers. And the study found that actually there's only a 6% chance of that behavior ever changing. So think about the implications of our relationships. When we are stuck, it's most likely because we're blaming, justifying, or shaming other people. So this is also when we get trapped in one of the biggest barriers of creating purposeful, robust relationships. And that's in the next slide. It's the drama triangle. And if I really do some like drum rolling, because the drama triangle is actually a model of dysfunctional social interactions that involves three roles: the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. It was first described by Stephen Cartman in the 1960s. And the wonderful thing about these, model is that it really allows us to see ourselves playing those three characters. So this one, the victim, right? Someone is doing something to us. Or, we feel and we believe that we don't have any control, that we are at the mercy of others, that we are pretty much powerless. And this is when the drama, kind of the drama queens, where we live, or perhaps, what about this one? We actually turn into the persecutor. And as the persecutor, what do? We blame other people. Or how about this last one, when we are actually rescuing people? Ta-da! Clara to the rescue. This is actually the one that I identify the most. Because since I was little, I was told that I had to do everything for everyone else, that I had to be there, that I had to ensure the well-being, the happiness of people. So that created in me this belief that I have to be available always for everyone and that I have to rescue them. But the thing with rescuing is that we create codependency, and we actually take away the responsibility on the other person. So these are sold, these three things, the victim, rescuer, and persecutor, actually sold to us by, media and movies as good things, but they're actually not. Because in none of those positions, we are taking the right amount of responsibility for what's happening. The victim is feeling sorry for themselves, and the persecutor is blaming, and the rescuer is solving all the people's problems. So these are the things that, if we're actually not having consciousness about it, these are the things that destroy relationships. So we're going to go now into a quick pair share, and we're going to actually play with this a little bit. So we're going to go and misengaged. And by that, I mean, you're going to take this time to be on your phone, to kind of be distracted, or to do some of those images about misengaging as the other person is there. So I want you to misengage with each other, and we'll come back. So misengage, go misengage. Ed is doing it already. Okay, so I see people coming back and join us, and just share in the chat how that felt. Just share in the chat how misengaging felt to you. And I'll give Amy a couple of seconds to put up the next poll. Lonely. Wow. Weird. Yeah. Lonely, bizarre, disrespectful. Yep.
We see it.
Yep.
Yes.
It was hard, painful to see and do. I agree with you. Yep. Got it. So just being a little honest with ourselves right now, we're not sharing these results publicly. We're not going to tweet them away. We're not going to reveal your identity, but just have a little self-check. You know, what are some of the areas that you tend to hold on more often? So think about all of these, any of these, and all that apply, and just give their answers. Just take a quick of where you stand as it relates to some of these behaviors, which are barriers. And as I see the results coming in, I see avoidance is a big one in this group. Avoidance followed by walking on eggshells, being actually followed by defending. Avoidance, defending. Yeah. It's pretty scary when we realize kind of the effects of these tendencies, the effects of these behaviors. So I don't want to leave you on a bad note, right? I don't want to leave you with kind of like the iffiness of toxic relationships or being disengaged. So how about if we go into the other side of that graphic and we go to what some of the facilitators to creating robust relationships are. So there's actually kind of like, you know, 3 or 4 things that I want to share here, but just be conscious and be aware that you need to be aware and present and conscious about moving from one side to the other. And we do that through consciousness. We do that by, you know, listening to our emotions, to what our body is telling us, and connecting that into our yearning. So again, we need to be more conscious, more aware, more present, more purposeful, not just in reaction mode, not just kind of like dumping our stuff on people, or not just being upset. So this is really being more in touch with what we yearn for, what really matters to us, kind of what we value the most in touch with our emotions and our feelings, so we can use them to express more and more and more responsibly too. So we're gonna play a little bit with kind of what it is to go into the constructive or more creative side of relationships. And the first thing that we're gonna do is accentuating the positive. So how do we do that? How do we accentuate the positive? And you know, the takeaway from here is that we need 3 to 1 creative, positive, affirming experiences or thoughts or interactions we're exchanging for every disaffirming thing on the negative side. So one more time, we have a 3 to 1 ratio, 3 positives to neutralize the effects of 1 negative of those behaviors. This is how we bounce it back. That's what the research shows. And we also need to stop making assumptions about others' intentions and needs, because guess what? They're often wrong. So instead of assuming, get curious, reach out, ask open-ended questions. Hey, help me understand, why are you reacting this way? Or, you know, tell me more about what's happening to you right now. Or tell me more. Those questions allow us to get into reflecting mode, and instead of going into one of those other behaviors, we're actually engaging more deeply and present with the other person. There's the second thing. I hear a little bit of an echo on my end. If you all please mute your phones, that will be appreciated. This second facilitator is the notion about empathy and the notion about creating clear communications. And there's three elements to that. So empathy, it's really about feeling, not about thinking or analyzing. And for that, we need to be accessible, responsive, and engaged. And I think in my earlier share, this whole notion about being present came up several times as an example of a good relationship. The second one, Amy, go back to the other slide. The second bucket is clarity. And the majority of the time we think that we are clear or that we know what we want to communicate, but the majority of the times actually we're not. So there's a few things that you can do. The first one is cite the intention at front. So when you're having a conflict or when you're having kind of a courageous conversation with someone else, cite your intention. Hey, Susie, my intention with this conversation is to seek to understand, or my intention is to ask for help, or my intention is to be more supportive. Cite your intention from the get-go. And there's something magic that happens with the word intent. When we hear the word intent, our survival brain de-escalates. So there's something that happens in our brain, and research shows that that word intent helps us de-escalate so that instead of fighting or avoiding or being paralyzed by fear, we're actually more disposed to hear what's coming next. The word intent. The second one is citing the what. What is it that you want to really communicate to that person? And then a very important one is the why behind that what. Listen, I'm having a hard time with you right now, and I would like to, my intention is to get clear with you so that I can then go about my work a little bit more at peace. And it is important to me because I value relationships, because I value, your collaboration, and because I need you to succeed in my job as well. And then at the end of that communication, outline the expectations, clear expectations. Hey, so moving forward, this is what I expect. What do you think about that? Can we agree on that? So this is a very kind of like short experience or example about how do you use clarity and what clarity can mean to you. And the last bucket is reflective listening. And by that, I mean to be curious. So instead of you completing the sentence of the other person, or instead of you assuming what the other person says or feels or thinks, just be curious and stop yourself and listen. And then ask for feedback. Hey, from this conversation, what are you taking away? Or hey, about what we just discussed, what was meaningful to you? And that way you're going to be able to ensure that there's understanding on the other part, on both parts. And then the last one, like I said before, is ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions. And then the third part is embrace conflict as a gift. And I know these sounds really, really weird. And this sounds kind of like a little bit out of like, Lululand. But this actually works. And it's positive psychology and positive intelligence research. And really the invitation here is that we can choose how to deal with conflict, and there's kind of like three ways that we can choose to do so. The first one is we can avoid it and deny that it exists, which of course, what is it going to do? It's going to actually cause to grow and grow and grow and magnify over time, and then at the end we're going to put a dent into that relationship. The second one is we can confront it, right? If there's conflict, we just go for it, and we either get our way, right? Because we want and we need to be right, so we fight for it. We can negotiate, between the two parts, but at the end, the cost of the relationship could be at stake. And then the third way, which is actually what I'm recommending, is to use kind of the wiser way, the more conscious the more purposeful way to engage with other, which is to embrace the conflict and to see it as a gift and as an opportunity to harness its power to strengthen their relationship, to get curious about their relationship, to seek that deeper understanding between the parts. So again, I'll give you an example. If a couple or if a team says that their relationship is at 10 because they don't have any conflict, I'm going to tell you the reality or the checkup for that. It's really they're at 6 or 7 at their best. You can get 10 only if you are able and willing to harnessing the gift of conflict, or in other words, if you're able and willing to fight for something in common instead of fighting against. So those are the 3 invitations about how to deal with conflict. And then as a result, the idea is that we're generating more intimate engagements. And by intimate, I mean feeling much closer with the other person, being more present, more authentic, more real, more honest. Who wants to have those kinds of relationships more often? Can I see a hands up? I hope you all want to have these kinds of relationships. I do. Thank you. Thank you for those hands up. Thank you for the virtual hands as well. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. That's wonderful. So when we are genuinely and real in our relationships, we're actually going to seek and share the truth more often, as you can see in the next slide. We have straight talks with people. We can fight, but we can resolve it. We are engaging more deeply in our relationships. And what research shows is that happy partners, happy couples, happy teams pay a lot of attention to the small stuff. Pay attention to these. They don't ignore the little things. They don't ignore those tiny things that are bothering him, that seem a little off with them. They look at the little bumps on the road and they deal with them. And they look at those small things and they don't let those things build up. And they don't let those little things accumulate to create huge problems. And guess what? They fight a lot earlier. They fight a lot earlier. They don't let the small things piled up. And guess what? They don't sweep them under the carpet, as you see in the next slide. They stay on top of things. So yes, they fight, but they fight early and often, and they resolve things. They have angry and honest conversations, and that's positive. They're not just being nice to be nice, but they're being positive and they're being, engaged and committed. And they also fight boredom with novelty. Variety and surprises that wake up their consciousness and that offer more opportunities to be open and to be engaged and alive in relationships. Novelty helps us be also more willing to take risks. On this side of that engagement continuum, we have more fun at home. And guess what? We can have more fun at work as well. We have a sense of humor, as you see in the next slide, which is extremely important. Like laughing until your belly hurts. That is possible, and we need so much more of that. These are the things that we want to do more of. How about this next one? Showing our affection to one another, showing appreciation. In this next one, more interest with one another. Share more joy among your team members. How about this one? I love this one. Share and have more moments like this one where there's more sense of care. How about this other one? Being cared about. We need to be cared about too. It's not just about us pouring ourselves out, but we letting people pour on ourselves and being more affirming to each other. And in this next one, this is a reality, and research shows it. Men need more affirmation than women. Can we just all agree to that and be at peace with that? So why not give it to them more often? How about having deep conversations, which is actually what makes us happiest? It makes happy couples, happier friends, happy team members. It's not just the logistics. The logistics don't do that. It's the stuff that really matters that does. Our hopes and what our missions in life are, what our purpose are. And because of that, we're also able to share our legacy. Those things that are important to us, like you see in the next slide. We start talking about those things that are really important, those things that are kind of in our bucket list. Amy, we're in the second slide, in the other one. So we're able to be open and authentic and willing to share the things that matter, the things that are part of our legacy. And we're able to actually celebrate the good times and not just be there when things are bad, which is important, but we're there to celebrate ourselves, to celebrate our friends, and to celebrate our partners and our team members for what matters most to them. We celebrate them for their achievements, if they were on their own or if they were as a team, but we celebrate. In good relationships, we are growing, we're not stagnant. We're actually helping each other, as you see here. We're inspiring each other to meet our goals. This is very important. And then we can go deeper into the unknown, into those areas that are scary, that we're afraid to. We're willing to be more ourselves, more authentic. We have more vision, more purpose. And a sense of vision and purpose really works to have those types of engaged relationships at home and at work. A sense of purpose, as you have heard me said before, really changes everything. Very few couples or teams, for example, sadly work on team visions, on visions that are commonly ingrained in the culture. It's very important. And what happens next is actually those relationships start benefiting the world around them. It goes beyond themselves and they create a ripple effect. So to close, I'm going to go back to our pair shares or group shares, and I am going to ask you to engage, to be present with that other human being in front of you, to be curious about who they are as individuals, as human beings, to ask some questions, to acknowledging something positive that you see in them or that you know about them that you haven't said before. So let's go and let's engage deeply into what a good relationship can be.
Hey, it was me that was on the phone briefly.
No worries. Did you get assigned to a room?
Nice. So I see people coming back, and I see a couple of smiling, which I'm gonna assume it's a good sign, but please go ahead and mute your phones, and if you can share in the chat, what was that like? How was engaging with another human being with a little bit more intention and purpose and honesty felt to you? Lovely. Oh, lovely, lovely, nice. Just keep adding your chats into your comments in the chat room. While I get Amy ready for the last slide, which is really about, you know, the assignment. Fun, feels good, warm. I like that. I would have been better in person. I agree. I would have been giving, obviously asking permission, but hugs. As a Latina, you know, personal space doesn't exist to me. I had to adjust here in the US, but I love the touch, you know, hugging people and holding people. That was wonderful. Corinne, I was just in the middle of asking Amy about her day. Perfect. Reach out to her anyway when we're done and keep that conversation. That's beautiful. So as we do these sessions, I'm going to invite you to consider one of these assignments as we prepare for our next webinar. Choose one that resonates the most to you. This is not with the intention to grade you or to, you know, give you a golden star. You all get golden stars by being here today and by investing in your own development. So you already won the first prize. So this is just with the intention for you to be continuously reflecting and being more attuned to what you're feeling, the behaviors that you are sharing, and to keep learning and growing. So the first one is to use the drama triangle handout, which Amy shared that with you all earlier today, and to just play with that this week and be a little bit more mindful about what role, victim, rescuer, or persecutor, do you tend to play the most. The other one is you can choose one person to practice having the empathic and clear communication. Remember, using kind of like that template about intention, stating the what, explaining the how, and then using a lot of questions for it. The other one could be to find out how you're going to be accentuating the positive more often. So if there's one person that you want to play this with, if it's your significant other, if it's a family member, if it's at work, just choose one person and try to find 3 things about that person that are positive that you can share with that person. And then keep writing about what you're learning and how you're growing. And then last but not least, sign up for the next webinar, which is next week. As always, there's a resource page, and Amy sent to you the attachments as well that you can download and use this. The Heart of the Fight book is an incredible book. It's a fun book to read and to get deeper into the things that we talked about here. And then, as always, I recommend that you do these things with someone else. Get closer with someone else. Share what's going on with you. If you're having a hard time, if you're having a hard time finding a positive, just find someone else that you can chat with. 5 minutes. Don't do these things alone. And then always, I'm a resource and an app support. And then remember to shine your light and let it shine brightly out there through all of your things that you do on a daily basis and with the people that you are with. You are unique as your fingerprints, and you're already being a positive influence already. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I am so grateful for you all. Thank you for being here today, and I will see you next week. Eager to hear how you're doing. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.